Hey guys, welcome back and thanks for tuning in to this review of the Eldress, a small yet surprisingly functional, ergonomic, and really useful knife from Mora of Sweden. We're going to talk all about it in this review, so stick around. So the Mora Eldris is a knife that came out, I want to say a year plus ago. It's been quite a while since this was first released. I saw it show up on Blade HQ's website, was real interested in it, and saw a handful of people doing reviews on it. I was like, I got to get one of those in hand. I've had it for many months, maybe even a year plus. Can't remember at this point, but I've done lots of work with it, carried it quite a bit on camping trips, done a good bit of carving, sort of whittling with it, and I found it to be extremely useful, particularly for its size, as I said in the intro. So let's get into a few specs here and kind of talk about what you get in this package. So there are a couple different packages you can buy with the Mora Eldris, and it also comes in lots of different colors. This is obviously sort of the spring green, I don't know what you'd call that, but I like the green color. There's also a blue, a red, a kind of a fall yellow sort of a color. Was there a black? There may have been a black, I'm not sure about that, but I'll flash some of those colors and some of that some of that stuff on screen so you can get a little preview of how you can buy that thing. It's also, like I said, available in two different price points. There's a kit version that comes with what I think is a belt sheath attachment, maybe a cord. I can't remember exactly. I didn't buy the kit version of it. I just bought the standard plain old version because that's what I wanted to try out. I figured I could do everything else with it if I wanted to. But the standard version comes in at about 25 bucks. You get that kit version for about 40 bucks. So we've got a blade length of about 2 1/8 inches on it, an overall length of about 5.625 or so. Blade thickness is about 0.08 inches, so fairly thin, nice and light, obviously. And we've got Mora's stainless steel for that blade. Also, they're sort of like a compound Scandi grind on it. I don't know what you'd call that or whether they have a name for what they've done there, but we have like a pure Scandi grind here, and then we have, like I said, almost like a compound modified Scandi grind up here. Whatever it is, it works. Gives you kind of less material there at the tip of the blade, so for whatever cutting you intend to do with that, works out a little better. That probably explains the price point more or less. Typically your Mora knives, you get into them for 15 bucks or less, but this one's starting at 25. Kind of surprising considering how small it is. Clip point blade is what they would call that. You can see that as it comes flat right there, kind of drops a little bit like it's been clipped off. And it's got a kind of a cool satin finish to it as well. The handle length is about 3.5 inches, which is not much to hold on to. Typically 3.5 is what you think your blade length is going to be. This handle, you can see there, my entire hand doesn't quite wrap around it. Like it completely encompasses it and it looks like it disappears in there, but my pinky almost falls off the end of it. Even so, I found it to be pretty useful in the cutting that I've done with it. You get full control over that blade. There's no real difficulty in managing it and in doing good work with it. Somehow, it just works. The weight on it, just 2 ounces or so, a little over 2 ounces. And I'm not sure if that's with the sheath or without the sheath, but I don't know. Judging by the total weight, I might say that's even with the sheath. It's probably a little extra with the sheath. I bet it's 2 or so ounces. 2.15 is what they list for the knife itself. Made in Sweden, as all Mora knives are. So the quality that comes from that, the attention to detail that comes from that, all the things we expect from a Mora knife are present in this Eldress, and it's well designed and well executed. The sheath on it, real simple, just a plastic sheath. You can see that there's a little bit of a divot right there in the handle and a little bit of a bump right there on the inside of the sheath, and those two things sort of interact to create that tension and create that retention. Now, the chain that I have on here is not one that came with the knife. That's one that I had from some other knife and just threw on there, probably something from Cold Steel. Works fine. I'm not going to wear it right now because I do have a microphone right here and it's going to interfere, but it carries very nicely around the neck, and I would say that as far as neck knives go, it's fairly ideal. Now, you can see that the sheath takes that knife in either direction, so it's completely ambidextrous. Obviously, if you want that logo out, which isn't really an important thing, but if you want that logo out, then you can obviously swap that either way, and it works just fine. Now, some might ask, why would I buy the Eldress over any other Mora knife? They're cheaper, they work just as well, and they're larger. They, got more control over it in my hand. Well, that's a very good point. That is a very, very good point, and I don't really have a counter to that. I mean, if you want the Eldress, in my opinion, it's more or less for the looks and for the, I guess, the factor that it's just different, kind of cool for what it is. Is it better than other Mora knives? In my opinion, not really. I can do about the same amount of work, sometimes more work with different Mora knives than I can with this one. That said, this one is very handy, very easy to carry around, and works almost as well as any of those other knives. Now, one thing I will say about this whole package right here is I can basically throw that whole thing in my front pocket and I've got a fixed blade on me rather than the standard folder. So you can't really do that with any other Mora knives. This is about the only one that's small enough that you could genuinely pocket it exactly as it is. So if that's important to you, there you go. That's probably the big selling point. I guess size in general would be a selling point for this. Not that Mora knives, generally speaking, are large. They're not. They're pretty small, pretty manageable. But this is even more compact and even more small size. So throwing into a pack, throwing into a kit of some kind that might not take some other fixed blade is possible with this little guy here. So that right there could also be a selling point for you. So, the question of whether you should buy the Mora Eldris over some other Mora knife is always going to be there. But personally, I think Mora knives are inexpensive enough that you can own several of them. And if you like to collect them, if you like to have several different ones that you dedicate to different packs and bags and kits and so forth, this is one that you could incorporate. And for its size, for its cool factor, I guess is what I would say, I really like it, and yeah, for me, it's worth the $25. But that's basically my review, guys. I'm the Late Boy Scout. Thanks very much for watching. See you on the next one.